So we'll go ahead and kick off our Economic Development Community Matters. So thanks so much for being here. I wanted to first introduce Lindsay Taylor with WGU. She is one of our series presenting sponsors of Community Matters. So I'm going to give her a few minutes to say hello to everybody.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, my name is Lindsay Taylor. I am Manager of Strategic Partnerships with Western Governors University, or WGU, here in Indiana. And my role is managing our many partnerships we have with businesses and organizations like yourself around the state. In many cases, we partner with organizations, for the giving employees affordable option to go back to school, so education, tuition assistance benefits. But we also work with organizations in other capacities, like connecting our grads with open positions you might have, or connecting organizations with current students who are skilling up and will be ready to fill open positions in the future. So if you don't know, WGU is a nonprofit university, online university, and we offer bachelor's and master's degrees in 4 areas of study: business, IT, teaching, and healthcare professions. And we're a little bit different from your traditional university for several reasons, and that's by design, because we were created to give greater access in education that fits into an adult learner's busy schedule. So our competency-based learning model allows for our students to be able to move through their courses quickly as they want, because it's about mastery of skill versus the amount of seat time. So if you bring in knowledge, you're able to use that knowledge to move through quicker through your program. Additionally, WGU has one of the lowest tuition rates in the country, about half the national average. So for a bachelor's degree for a 6-month term, you're looking at an average about $32.25. And again, that's about half the national average for a traditional college or university. So our model is unique in that it's that flat rate fee, books and online resources included, again, for 6 months. So it's kind of an all you can eat learning model, as some of our folks like to say. And again, students can move through their courses as quickly as they like. So they're saving, that time and money. Currently, WGU Indiana has over 5,200 students and over 11,000 alumni. And nationwide, we're growing every day, over 130,000 students and 200,000 plus alumni. So I'm going to put my email in the chat here. And if you have any questions additionally about WGU or opportunities to partner or collaborate, I'd love to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. And then I just want to take a second. I don't think Abby Robertson is here, but Discount Filters is also one of our series presenting sponsors. So thank you so much to WGU and Discount Filters. And then also thank you to all of our team sponsors. We have Express Employment Professionals that sponsors the talent team. Cardon is the sponsor of the community engagement team, and Discount Filters also sponsors the growth and planning team. So I'm just going to give a little round of applause by myself. Thank you to all of them. So I think up next, Amanda and Adam, were you going to do a brief introduction before we start our Kahoot? Okay.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Amanda Rebedew. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development with Aspire Economic Development and Chamber Alliance. I think I'm about 4 days away from officially being here 1 year, which is very exciting. I started right at about 3 weeks before the pandemic. It was great. Before the whole world shut down. That's not a fun time to start a job, my goodness. Prior to that, I was the Economic Development Director for the City of Westfield, and really loved being able to work directly for a municipality like that. And prior to that, I worked as a site selector I worked on a site selection practice group as part of a commercial real estate firm. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that later. So Adam?
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to talk to you today. And I actually have the pleasure of knowing many of you. So it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces, even if not virtually. So yeah, my background with Johnson County, specifically with Greenwood, started in 2012. I was fortunate to be appointed as the city controller at that time and worked with the Myers administration to initially get some of those things off the ground. And that's where I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of you in that capacity. What you may not know is that since that point in time, I've actually gotten the opportunity to travel the country, and you saw a little bit in the description, actually, and to some extent internationally, to work with approximately 1,000 different other local communities in just streamlining process and some of the challenges that you're going to see and discuss today. So today, my wife and I run a small local government consulting practice, and we get the pleasure to work with Amanda and the Aspire team daily. So what she didn't tell you is that 2 hours ago we were working a deal in Johnson County. So it's a fun process, and I look forward to sharing it with you all today. Thanks for the time.
All right, so hopefully everyone saw in your registration that we're going to play an online game called Kahoot. It's web-based, so once I get it going, you're just going to go to kahoot.it and enter in the game code. But first you'll want to grab your second, you can't even see this, your second device, yeah, like Amanda has. You're going to watch the question on your, I'm assuming you're on a laptop or a desktop, but then you're going to use your phone or your iPad or iPod as like your buzzer to ring in. So give me just a second and I'll get that pulled up and we'll get started. Adam, did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say in pure economic development fashion, there's always a winner and a loser, right? So we're going to add a little bit of fun to this. So there is going to be a clear first, second, and third place. And we are going to provide a $100 gift card to your choosing or charitable donation to number one. And then we'll do 50 and 25 for the second and third place. So we'll know here in a few minutes who's that recipient is. And then Aspire's gracious enough to connect me so we can chat later today to get you connected with those resources. So good luck. And I would encourage you to be quick in your responses.
Okay, can everyone see the Kahoot screen here? So you go to this www.kahoot.it to participate. You'll type in your name, your player name, and then put in this 7-digit PIN. And then make sure you have your phone or iPod or a secondary device so that you can buzz in.
Jennifer, can you hear Kevin?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to give a couple more minutes. If you could go to the www.kahoot.it and log in, put in that game PIN number and put your name in, and then we'll start the game. And Adam has some exciting prizes for our top 3 winners.
I personally like the background music for what that's worth, Jennifer. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you another minute. So hopefully you are not having any issues. Let me know if you're having any problems. We have about half of our registrations in, so.
Jennifer, do you have to have the app on your phone to use it as a buzzer? I've never done this before.
No.
Okay.
No, you don't.
You'll just go to Safari on your phone, go to the internet, and you'll just go to kahoot.it.
Yep.
And it'll pop right up. You should have a box that will have a place where you can log in the pin.
Oh, I already did, I did that on, okay.
Yep.
anyone else want to join in? We still are missing quite a few people. There's prizes. All right, any questions before we get started? You're going to use the phone or your secondary device as your buzzer. So once I click start, questions will pop up on your computer, and then you'll use your phone to ring in.
Oh, we got more people coming.
Great. Looks like we're going to have some staff join us too in the game, but they're not going to be eligible for prizes. All right. I'm going to start it now. So just use your phone and then you click the color button to submit your answer. Hey, everyone got that right.
Good.
Good job. Let's see who did it fastest. Lisa. Just about everybody on that one. Let's see if Lisa held her lead. Nope. All right, that was true. Lisa's back in the lead.
Music makes the sound so intense.
Yep, all of the above. Oh, we had a lead change. Now it's Carrie. Kind of we're split on our responses on that one. Erin's leading us. True or false? All right, question 7.
I love the Aladdin lamp.
Thanks.
Now, when you answer this question, remember I'm a very good dancer. I'm not really. We could be chief smoothie maker if needed.
All right, 2 questions left. Good job. Everyone got that right.
Yep.
You're answering pretty fast. I think we could have made this a little harder. All right, last question. Good job. Everyone got it right. All right, let's see who our top 3 prize winners are. Number 3, Erin.
Yay!
And Lisa. And I don't know who that is.
Whoever ad libs is.
Okay, yeah. Congratulations, you guys. You did a great job. So I'm going to have you put your email address in the chat box. And that way Adam can connect with you about collecting your prizes.
Ad libs is Libby. I'm in advertising. Ad libs.
Ah, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so be sure to put the 3 winners, put your email in the chat box and we will connect with you on prizes. So thanks again, Adam, for donating those to our winners. That was fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for playing. Just really wanted to kick this off with something a little bit more interesting than just some stats and figures. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see if I can do this right, as I did while we were when we practiced this. There we go. All right. Nope, not subtitles. We did that last time. Sorry about this. This one. Which one is the presenter view? Let's see here. It's not popping up at all for me. Yep, there we go. All right. All right, what do you see? Do you see the notes or are you seeing the proper slide?
I see your first slide and then the next slide.
Okay, so you're not seeing the proper view. Let me. All right. Well, this booger's giving me some trouble here. I do apologize. This is it's great when it works.
Yeah.
I think it said something about swap presenter and slideshow.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
Yeah.
what you want to do, right?
Yep. That's what I'm
It
attempting to
doesn't.
do.
Oh,
Yep. Let me.
that's when technology isn't your friend.
No, it's not.
Here you go. I think
Okay.
that's good.
Yep. That's
Yep.
fine. But then my notes disappear.
Oh,
All right. All right, we're just going to go with it. It'll be great. Okay. So, all right. So Economic Development 101. So as I mentioned, kind of in my previous life with a company called Cassidy Turley, I was part of a site selector group that we helped companies that were looking for opportunities to expand, opportunities to maybe relocate. We helped them find new locations. And so what we're going to kind of take you through today is really the beginning of that process. And so at Aspire, we receive leads from all over the place. We receive leads directly from brokers, from actual companies that are looking to relocate, but we also receive leads from IEDC, our state economic development organization. And so what they do is the site selectors, once they have drilled down to a particular state, they then request information from each of the regions or each of the counties to see if they have buildings in their area that will fit their needs. And so we'll get to that point, but I wanted you to see what that looked like kind of on the front end of that process. And so when I bring up IEDC or the state, remember that is the state's economic development organization. And just a quick thing here, I live in alphabet soup that I assume everybody knows. And I'm sure you all live in your own form of alphabet soup. So if I say something that doesn't make sense, Jennifer, if you could keep an eye on the chat for me, if there's something, if there are any questions, please let me know. And so as a site selector, we're going to go through a company analysis. So the site selector will sit down with the company to understand what their needs are. They'll make a priority list and then dig into that state investigation, see which states match up best with their needs. And then once that happens, then they reach out to the states again, drill down to some of the regions, and even drill down to the actual cities themselves. Once they land on a short list, and then that's when we'll swap over, and Adam will present on what that available incentives review looks like. And so the whole process of site selection is a funnel. And so you start with a really, really big list, and your job is to make that list as small as possible. And so any community that can give you any reason to check them off the list, it just makes life easier. So if you don't have quality of life, let's take that one off there. If we don't have this accessibility, if this is a company that requires, interstates and things like that, that gives me a reason to pull them off the list. It's really cutthroat and really horrible. So as you can see from our funnel here, we search that region. We dig down to the candidate locations, then candidate sites, and then we have that very short list, maybe 4 or 5. Usually it's just 3 of those finalist sites. And then that's when we start digging into those local incentive packages. So the process I'm going to take you through, I have made up a company that is, so we're going to go through this process with Robidoux and Associates, myself as a site selector, that's not a real company, with another, not a real company. Just a little bit of an insight into our world. So all of our projects come in with very minimal information. All of the requests for information come in from the state with really little information, which you're going to get a taste of later on. A lot of times they come in with a project name. So project Noah's Ark, just as an example, became Milwaukee Tool. And so once you get a little further into the process, then you get a little more information, then you know who the company is, and then you can start, then it makes a little bit more sense. Noah's Ark, they had to explain to us the link. And so when I worked as a site selector, it generally was whatever my boss happened to be staring at the time. So we did have Project Paperclip and Project Shoe. So in that spirit, we are going to be working with Project Otter Leaf. Oh, sugar, that's not going to show up. Oh, there you go. So these are 2 items on my desk. I just happened to be staring at when I made this up. So we're working with Project Otter Leaf. All right. So Project Otterleaf reached out to Robidoux and Associates because they are really having some challenges where they're located. So they are located in California. They're a 3D metal printing company. They house both production in manufacturing. So that design piece, so they have engineering and they also have production. They've run into a lot of regulatory issues. And so they actually, there was I'm making this up. There was a bird that was rumored, they were starting an expansion, and it was rumored that the Bananaquit bird had a nesting location in the area near where they were going to be. That's a real bird. Look that up. Where they were going to be expanding to. And so construction has been halted indefinitely because there was the potential of the Bananaquit bird being there. And so they've just dealt with a ton of regulation. Everything needs a permit, everything needs a license. And so they're just seeking another location where it may be a little bit easier to do business. And so just to give you just a breakdown of their company, they've got 50 employees, they've got 5 in the office, 15 engineers, 30 production employees. Again, challenges include those regulatory issues that I mentioned, high taxes, and they're really having trouble staffing their production employees. You know, with a California address, it's not a challenge necessarily to find engineers or those tech positions. It is a challenge to find those production pieces. So, all right. So Robidoux and Associates has really dug into their priorities, and access to workforce is the first one. They want a easier environment in order to be able to work. Their cost of doing business is very important, and their labor costs are a huge priority. And so what's going to happen is we're going to look at the map of the U.S. and we're going to start drilling down, and I'm going to start pulling things off the list, all states off the list that will help us find our site. And so our first pass is they did not want to locate in a state that they had a competitor. And so through my research, I found that there were, that all of the states that you see marked with a red X had competitors. And so those were pulled off. Obviously, California, that's the one with the challenges for them. And so we're going to pull that one off the list as well. So this is the first pass. Next pass, it was a real priority for them to be in proximity. Workforce pipeline was a real priority. And so they wanted to be within a state that had one of the top 50 engineering schools. So if the state did not have quick access to a top engineering school, that got pulled off the list. So you can see this made a big dent. So we pulled all of these states off of the list, everything you see with a red X. And so the next item, this is a data point that site selectors use to understand the concentration of a particular occupation in an area. So which is called location quotient. So you'll see from our list here, we've got some that are under 1, and then we've got some that are above 1. A location quotient below 1 means that there's not much of a concentration of that particular occupation in that area. So this is specific to, let me see here. So anyway, so if it is over 1, then there's a lot of those types of occupations in that area, which is beneficial because that means that that particular area or region has systems in place to support that occupation. So if it's an engineering occupation, then they've got, they have training in place. If they have, they're talking about this particular occupation in high schools. There are things in the area to help support this type of occupation. So that's why location quotient is important. And you can see from the ones that I've highlighted here, these are the ones that are going to remain on the list because they have a location quotient of more than 1. And another priority of theirs, this was through our investigation, our conversations with Otterleaf Engineering. They do a lot of business in Germany. And so they wanted to make sure that they had direct flight access to Europe. When in 2017, Indianapolis Airport was able to add a direct flight to Paris. So this really opened up Europe to Indiana. So you can see why that's such a priority. I also wanted you to see from my list here just some of the other items like our regulatory rank and in that location quotient and just kind of how that ranked with some of the other states. So you can see that North Carolina, Tennessee, Indiana, Georgia, Minnesota, and Michigan, all we're going to keep those on the list because they have direct flights to Europe. They do a lot of business with those folks, and they also, customer service is very high on their priority list. And so we want to make sure that they've got easy access to be able to continue working on site with those folks in Germany. The next item is they did not want to pay more than $40,000 for their production workers, and they didn't want to pay more than $80,000 for their employees. And so we looked at the annual wages for those particular occupations. And so Minnesota and Michigan, we went ahead and pulled off the list. We left Georgia on there because of their high regulatory environment rank and that location quotient, along with those direct flights to Europe. And I'll also let you know, Robidoux and Associates has done business with the folks in Georgia quite a bit, and their ease of working with incentives and things like that has been very helpful. So we'll make sure they're on the list as well. That's why it's important to have good relationships with site selectors. So interestingly enough, I actually, when I did this analysis, my goal was not to keep Indiana on here. It just kind of happened. So so these are the four states that we are left with. We're left with Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Indiana. And so from this step, what I will do is as Robidoux and Associates, is we'll go ahead and we'll assign a project name to it, because we're going to start reaching out to these states and getting some additional information from them, looking at the regions of activity there in each one of these states, and kind of starting to make another list and drilling down a little bit further. And so we're going to go ahead and give this one a project name of Project River. Okay, so Adam, now that I've done my investigation, I have decided that I want to focus on Central Indiana as a region on my list. So what can you do for Project Otter? Sorry, Project River.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me go ahead and share my screen. And Amanda or anyone else, if you can just give me a positive that you can see the presentation.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So yeah, just as Amanda said, so where the handoff happens between the local economic development organization or the state site selector and then the local communities is really an important juncture. And my job today is to try to summarize that process to let you all get a feel for what's involved. So I'm going to approach this with some fun, right? Because ultimately, you know, the vantage point for the local community, especially if Project River is a very attractive business opportunity with jobs and income, is from the local community's perspective, they want to win that, right? And there's likely competition within the region that they're competing against. So I'm going to briefly talk about the importance of fit. I'm going to talk about really the decision framework that local communities follow, talk about the adoption roadmap. Every community is at a different place. And then lastly, I know there's some community leaders on today's session. I'm going to actually leave with a quick little checklist of best practices that your community could use to ultimately score better and be more competitive in these local peer-to-peer kind of evaluation settings. So let's go ahead and get started. So takeaway number one is, you know, if we could sum it up in really kind of a one-liner, is that from the local government's perspective, from the community's perspective, it's all about fit. So I'm going to explain that here with a metaphor, but ultimately the key takeaway is that it's really a matter of a long-term partnership between two parties, and you really want to make sure that the profiles match, and you want to also differentiate on those profiles as well. So things such as quality of life and tax abatements and live, work, play amenities, those are all almost table stakes now and are no longer differentiators. So really it's that community profile and company fit that really become the difference points. So let's go through a quick thought exercise together. So it's the middle of the week, late in the day. So I want you to do a little daydreaming with me. Put yourself this coming Saturday afternoon. You've got your comfy clothes on. Maybe you're like my wife and I, and you're watching Netflix. We just got done watching The Queen's Gambit, and it's what's amazing. And now we play chess all the time, but that's for a different story, different conversation, different meeting. So you're there, you're relaxing, you're having a good time, and all of a sudden you hear an unexpected knock on your front door. You get up, you walk up to the door, you check your door's peephole, or maybe you check your Ring camera, and you see a sharply dressed individual holding a fresh bouquet of flowers. So that's interesting. Go ahead and open the door and you say, "Can I help you?" And the individual responds something like this: "Congratulations. Out of 90,000 potential suitors, I have down selected you as one of my top 10 finalists to marry, to enter into a long-term relationship with. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you my name. And also I need you to pay for half the cost of the wedding and the honeymoon." How would you all respond to that? Some of you might say, "Get off my porch." Some of you who are more intellectually curious, like Amanda and I, may start to ask additional questions. So let's go ahead and open this up. Why don't you put a few questions in the chat? What types of questions would you ask that potential suitor that just randomly showed up on your front porch? See a couple coming in here. Okay, Leslie, good one. Yeah. Oh, I love that one. What is your family like? Are you a Colts fan? What do you have to offer? What are your goals? Yeah, good one. Can you share what's most important to you? Love it. Yeah, I always like to ask how much money do you make? Why'd you pick me? What would you be doing on this Saturday afternoon if we got together, right? So hopefully that thought exercise gives you a picture in your mind that you can take away today, if nothing else. And just like that would be an interesting process, and that you would likely lead to questions. I see even more and more coming in. That's really not that dissimilar to what this process looks like on the local development front. It's a qualification exercise. It's a discussion. It's a question. It's a set of questions that you start to ask to get a feel for if you're potentially a good fit or not. And that's really one of the main takeaways today. And I hope that story helps illustrate some of the key points. And you could also imagine that just like in that conversation, there's culture fit. There's some, there's qualitative and quantitative things that come into effect. So really the key takeaway is that just like in any good, long-lasting relationship, it's not black and white. There's a gray process involved. So let's move forward here. So the next thing would then be, okay, what does that process usually look like? So when you look at various different communities, there is a standard decision-making framework. Now, every community you'll see here in a moment is a slightly different, slightly unique, but generally speaking, this is kind of how it works. So the kind of gray triangle on the left, that's the prospect journey. So that's Project River's perspective, right? So from their view of the world, they're really just trying to get an awareness of what sites are out there. Once they get a list of 10 communities, those are the ones they start to consider, and then ultimately they make a decision that's best for their business. From the local government's perspective, it's slightly different. It's almost inverse. They first get notified of the prospect. Then they work the opportunity. So those are those questions, right? Those are those front porch, knock on the door type questions that you go through to see kind of what this is all about. And really the decision usually hinges on impact to the existing community, right? Because every community has its own gaps in workforce, has its own strategic goals. And ultimately this project, especially if it's to be incentivized, should really be actually helping in more of a systemic way. It should be actually helping the existing base, either from a diversification or an enhancement. So those are, I hope, give you different frameworks, a way to think about that, at least the landscape of how these decisions are generally made. Now, with that as our backdrop, the second point is that every community's process with regards to economic development and especially their individual character strengths are completely unique. And this is a key point. So, no longer again can, quality of life, live, work, play really be a differentiating statement. Each community has to kind of go through that process to find out what it has to offer that is unique. So when it has that list, when it meets that list of 10 communities, they're able to differentiate on those key points and find businesses that also align on those key points. And that's really how you can really differentiate yourself above and beyond just lowest cost to live or those types of parameters. So that's really key. And it's probably likely for those of you that are in the business community and running for-profit businesses, just like you have certain target customers or profiles, it's really not so dissimilar. It's just it's really just trying to synthesize the community's equivalent to those same considerations. So, when we look out and talk to different communities, broadly speaking, there's, from an adoption standpoint on this or a methodology perspective, there's generally 3 different types. And a lot of people, when they see this slide, think that it's almost always correlated to population size or something of that nature. And that's really not the case. There are small villages and towns that have a very well-oiled machine with regards to how they throughput a new prospect. Whereas there's very large cities that, just by the function of being large, have so many different stakeholders and internal sign-offs that it actually gets very disjointed from the actual in business trying to conduct, evaluation. So the experience really starts to suffer. So generally speaking, on one end of the spectrum, you have, in a type 1 community, you have very low number of opportunities. You have maybe low market awareness, the process isn't defined, and as a result, the growth suffers, and the actual leverage in that case is on the developer community. So those usually result in the greatest number of incentives that have to be offered in order to kind of move the market, if you will. As you move up the adoption roadmap, you go all the way to a type 3 community. In this case, you have an abundance of opportunities. The phone and email is ringing quite often because you have achieved a high market awareness. So in the community of site selectors, in the community of builders, you're known as a good place to do business. And in that case, you've also matured your processes. So it's both democratic, it's both measured, and you ultimately think about things a little bit longer term. So rather than 1, 2, 10-year terms, these are 20 or 30-year type horizon type evaluations. And in that case, as you can imagine, the leverage swings all the way to the other side of the spectrum. And now the community has most of the leverage in those negotiations, specifically around incentives. So, for new communities that are looking at this and wanting to compete, obviously we're all coming out of this work from home economy. Things are starting to uptick. So in order to help your community capture more of these deals, to win more Project Rivers, what does that look like? Well, first step is to assess where you're at. Are you type 1, type 2, or type 3? Everyone's a little different. If you're type 1, that first step is just recognizing that and then really looking in, figuring out the community strengths and weaknesses. Going through that process to identify your ideal company profile. Maybe there's some policy changes or increased promotion that needs to take place. The next step is if you've achieved that, you start to get more opportunities, you're reviewing more items, then it's really a matter of developing a process. You're assembling a team, you start incorporating data management, you start working in communication plans, and ultimately your win rate should continue to increase here. And then lastly, kind of the pinnacle that every suburb community is really trying to go after is this type 3 status, where you have so much of an abundance and such little amount of land that the leverage is in the community. So in that case, you've achieved the kind of talent, you have the demographic profile, you have locational profile to where you can use that to your advantage. So from a local government's perspective, what we see there is that there's less financial support. So the abatements are either non-existent or non-standard or getting less and less aggressive. And then ultimately things such as tools that we'll look at later become less and less part of the equation, and more of the development is just free market exchange. So speaking of those tools, there's a few that I would mention here from a local government perspective. There's many more than this, frankly, and Amanda and Aspire and I have worked together along with the City of Greenwood actually to construct a few other of these that aren't even on the list. So in this case, just some common ones: utility access support, tax increment finance is a big one, and we could do an entire Aspire meeting on that, and likely probably should. The most common is real property and personal property tax abatements. And that's what the chart to the right looks like. So in this case, this is just a kind of a very simple standard tax abatement process. So you have new construction, creates new taxable assessed value. The abatement has a deduction schedule to that assessed value, and it starts off usually deducting almost all of the new assessed value. Its intent is to help stabilize the business. So it's, by definition, it's a new venture. They have a lot of startup cost. They maybe haven't proven the market. So it's meant to offset initial tax expense. Over time, as the business proves itself and hires and grows, that tax deduction rather, drops down, and then ultimately the amount of tax revenue, new tax revenue to the community goes up. So ultimately, that's some of the local tools that can be used amongst any others. One that we've had a lot of success with too, that we would recommend for really any local community, is discussions around training reimbursements. So these open up the door to really great, rich conversations with the company, the prospect, that are way more than just transactional conversations, but they really start opening up the conversation on a future relationship with these folks, and really trying to make sure, and Aspire did a great job with that with Milwaukee Tool. So, okay, I'm going to leave you with really the top 10 that I can think about as kind of a playbook, if you will, of best practices to help move your community from either a type 1 or type 3. And this would be something that I would encourage you all to think about as we move into the next part of the session today, when you get to get hands-on and kind of wrestle with some of these things. I won't read all of these to you. I'm sure we'll make this available. But really just to pick on maybe the first 2 or 3 here. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is that our communities have a unique identity. And the quicker that local governments can go through that reflection and go through that maturation process and incorporate that into their economic development conversations, the better and more prosperous they will be. And ultimately just helps them become more competitive, because they have an argument now that's not just purely financial. Secondly, land use and comprehensive plans are huge here, in making sure that you incorporate those and that you take those into consideration from day one. And then the third one, this one hits home to me, is that obviously local governments need to protect tax dollars. In the cohort question, there was that whole question on like free tax money. That becomes a really an important factor when you look at incentivizing this. So the sizing and participation levels really need to have a methodology around them and be well governed. So there's so much more that we could talk about, but for the sake of today, what we were hoping to do is really just give you some of the basics and then let you all wrestle with this. So you now know a little bit more about really the importance of fit. The importance of, or the kind of decision-making framework, or at least something about it, so you can kind of think through the process. And then lastly, a little bit about that adoption journey. So again, in closing, it's really it's not a black and white process. It's not as clear cut as yes, we should do this, or no, we shouldn't. Every community is different, and I think you'll see that in the next exercise. So I'm going to hand it back over to Jennifer and Amanda, and they're going to set you up with a simulated opportunity that actually I'm sure they'll tell you the details, but is simulated, but actually has some actual roots in a deal that we all reviewed. So I hope it's fun and I hope it helps. Thanks for your time.
Adam, you had a question from John. Did you want to take that really fast?
Yeah, sure. I didn't see that. Let me check that real quick.
He says, does the chart assume the business is a startup? And I think that's going back to the tools and abatement.
Yeah, so in that case, yeah. So the idea there would be that's a net new business, not necessarily an expansion. So a net new build, new construction, and it also somewhat assumed real property improvements as well, as opposed to business personal property.
Does anyone else have any questions for Amanda or Adam before we move on to our next part?
All right, so I'm going to share my screen real quick here. Hopefully a little smoother than last time. Less notes needed with this piece. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
We good? Okay. All right, so here's our breakout activity. As Adam mentioned, we want you guys to wrestle with us. And so you're going to be put into a group with several other people, and you're going to be your own municipality. And so you as a municipality are going to review Project Honeybee. So Project Honeybee is an international e-commerce company. They are seeking 850,000 square feet or a build-to-suit facility with a potential expansion up to 1.5 million square feet. So that's huge. Their capital investment between real estate and equipment will be $100 million. They are anticipating 250 new full-time jobs with an average wage starting at $15.25 and would go up to $16.50 an hour over 5 years. So you are a municipality in Johnson County, just a quick reminder on that. So what we want you to do in your breakout group is we want, and Jennifer will, nobody needs to take any notes or anything like that. She'll add these to your chat box to make sure you have that open. These details. We want you guys to review this type of project, and we'd like for you to discuss on whether or not this would be a project that you, as your own little municipality in Johnson County, if you would put your tax dollars towards that, if you would incentivize this project. So Jennifer, if you want to go ahead and flip us or start the group process, we'll come back and we will discuss this a little bit further. So.
Okay, I think everybody's back now. Amanda, Adam, did you want to hear from some of the people in the breakout rooms about what they decided?
I would like a, oh, looks like we've got some more folks coming in.
I just want to say, in the spirit of competition, my breakout room, Aaron and Carrie are rock stars, and we've got a good proposal coming your way, Amanda. So
all about winning. I get that. All right, is that everybody back now?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. So if you're able to, if you could raise your hand on whether or not your municipality decided to incentivize this this Project Honeybee. All right, Stephanie. All right, Lisa, Christian. All right, Angie. Okay, Jennifer, your hand is raised. All right. Okay, so half, maybe a little bit less than half decided to incentivize this project. Can you, those that decided to, Carrie, can you tell me why you thought that was a good idea, or what points of that particular project were attractive?
Amanda, I'll share. We did not incentivize, so I will be in the next group.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Stephanie, I'm sorry. Stephanie, do you want to share some?
Sure. We thought that the number of jobs it was bringing in, 250 seemed like a pretty decent amount of new jobs to the area. And we were kind of unsure of the wages. We know one of the goals for Aspire is to increase the average wage. So we weren't quite sure I should know this, don't know what the average wage is now within Johnson County. So that was something we were kind of bouncing back and forth. Angie was in my group.
Well, this probably would have been good information for you guys to go into the group with, but it's about 1950.
Okay. Well, okay.
Ooh.
That may have changed our decision then.
Yes. Yeah. So Adam, would you like to share your insight on Project Honeybee?
Yeah, I would love to. So, I hope, obviously with the count of who raised their hand and who not, I think it really just speaks to that whole point we've been saying this whole time, is that it's a great process. And so, a couple things. $100 million opportunities don't come around every day. Okay. I can think of one or two that we've really heard and actually been able to entertain. I mean, those are huge buildings. So putting that aside, just putting my kind of budget director hat on for a second, that's $2 million a year in new tax revenue. Do you know how many new police officers and firemen and library, support staff and road and street plowing? You can do a lot of community essential services on $2 million a year. So, those are few and far between dollars for local communities to come by. There's not a lot of sources that they can just automatically generate that much more tax revenue. So the kind of the point I want to make is that maybe for certain areas, the jobs, specifically the incomes, were just too low, right? And in the breakout session I had, we had a great discussion on this part where, at least in the area that this project was being proposed, we already knew that there was workforce placement challenges, that the employers were having a really hard time finding labor at those wages. So the idea for the community to incentivize more supply to just further more demand, rather, to incentivize more demand that would just kind of exasperate that process. That's like that whole point about how the impact is at the existing. You're looking at the existing. So yes, you see the future dollars, and it's easy to see that headline number: 250 jobs, 100 million in new assessed value, 2 million in new taxes, $20 million over 10 years. But when you really start to compare it, in a very specific area, you start to find reasons. The expression we use, the more you peel back the onion, the more you see that there's maybe some things that you don't like about it. And then, so my key point is, move communities. Maybe we go to farther down I-65 south. Maybe you go to other areas that are more of a type 1 community that don't have a lot of opportunities. That community could benefit greatly by having $2 million more dollars. They could invest in resources to help them mature higher to where the point they would be able to have the luxury to say no. So the key takeaway I would just leave you all with today is that it is every opportunity is unique. There are no perfect deals, and every community's needs are unique based on where they're at any given space and time. And the same community 5 or 10 years apart could likely score and answer the same project very differently. So if you look back over time, you may see different deals than are being constructed today, because that community may have matured or went up that adoption roadmap. So I hope that helps just articulate the gray area that really economic development is from the local community's perspective.
Well, in other counties around Indiana may have a very different average wage. And I know for me and Aspire, one of our big goals is raising that county average wage. Oh my gosh, it gives me such heartburn to think about adding 250 jobs and dropping that number so much. So as Adam mentioned, it is a great process, and you really have to assess these things on a case by case basis. So I hope all of you enjoyed that presentation. I know I enjoyed putting it together, or that Adam and I both enjoyed, just the whole process of just like I said, putting this together. If we can answer any questions that you guys have before we turn it back over to Jennifer for your team reports and such, we would be glad to do that.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or you can just type it into the chat.
I had a question with the the slide where you're moving down to where it became to the advantage of the community. So you're talking about the average and high volume of deals. So like, how do you know what those numbers are based on, the current situation with companies? Like, how do you know if you're getting a high volume of opportunities? How do you know if you're average? How do you judge that?
Yep. So the first place I would say is that the community should start tracking their own data, right? So just like any good business, what can be improved is what's measured, right? So the first step is start tracking their own data, quarter over quarter, month over month, year over year, whichever is where they're at. So for every community, I would say, first and foremost, just start where you're at. If you've always had kind of an analog process, that's fine. Start tracking it digitally. Create a file and start tracking that so that year over year you can see if the opportunities are increasing or not. And then you can start tracking win rates and those types of things. And then secondly, there's a ton of resources out there on benchmark studies as well, and benchmark aspect. One of the benefits of local government is that a lot of this is public information. So there's a lot of information that is just generally available that can be used for a community that's maybe a growing suburb that wants to see if they're doing better or worse than their peer group. There's a lot of benchmarking that can be done as well, Joel, to help kind of map out where they may be. And then that gives them an idea of, are they moving along that adoption roadmap, or are they staying in place? I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to share, I think that this exercise was really helpful. And I've understood a lot of the pieces and the parts, but going through this whole process brought a lot of the information that we've gotten and really brought it full circle to deepen my understanding. So I really appreciate all the work you put into this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any other questions, then we'll do our team reports. We have Stephanie here from the talent team. Stephanie, would you mind giving us a quick update?
Sure. So in February, we continued with our Skillful trainings. We had Skillful 104. And then in March, we're having a panel discussion, continuing our hidden workforce. And we have 3 different groups coming to talk about how they are helping incarcerated individuals get back into the workforce and partnerships they have with industry partners. So we're excited to hear from those groups. 2 are Department of Corrections, so it's a statewide initiative, and then 1 is actually called the Tower Program, and it's through Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. So
great. And I think let's see, I'm looking at the calendar. Your next meeting is March 19th, looks like.
yes, at 8:30.
Yep. And anyone that wants to attend you can just register on our website. That information's on our event page. Anything else? Nope. Okay. And then Angela, if you want to do the community engagement update.
Hi, we met on February 8th, and we talked about a current project we're working on is the Johnson County Park Tour, which is a project we came up with last year during the pandemic, and it's really COVID friendly. It's just something to get people out and about in Johnson County and to increase pride of place and health, fitness, and that kind of thing. But with the new strategic plan that came out and the goals with that, we spent a lot of time at our last meeting discussing and brainstorming some ways that our team can help accomplish those goals. And so we have a Google Doc that we started based off of something Stephanie Amos did. Loved your idea. So we've got a lot of ideas there, and then we're going to try to get some of those projects going in the future. A lot of exciting things. Our next meeting is March 8th. If you want to join, you can sign up online.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's it. Oh, I wanted to share, neither of our co-chairs are here from Growth and Planning, But I did want to let everybody know that we've been putting together a housing sub team, and we've met a couple times. So we're finalizing our kind of our purpose statement, and then putting together first steps. And I think we're going to be reaching out to some other organizations to kind of do a little listening tour, to have them come and present to us about the issues that they have with housing, and then go on from there. So I'm excited that we have several Community Matters volunteers, and then we have an employer and a nonprofit organization and a local planner. So I feel like we are going to have a good core group to start making decisions about how we can improve housing across the ecosystem. So that's what's going on with them. Does anyone have any quick updates or announcements before we close?
I would just like to say a big thank you to our teams, and just because there were so many things that we that Jennifer's been digging into and things like that, that we will be able to move forward because we have such great volunteers and such awesome brainstorming. You guys have done such a great job already of really digging into those goals, and so we're excited to see certainly not anything that we can do on our own. So we've got some really big goals. So we appreciate all of our volunteers and all of our teams working on them.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely echo that you guys put in a lot of time and effort on your own, that we very much appreciate all of the thought and the effort that you guys put into all of our projects. So thank you so much.
Jennifer, real quick, sorry,
Yeah.
Amanda beat me to it, but I did want to say hi, Christian with Aspire, just say thank you again to our volunteers. Thank you to Amanda and Adam. Like, that was unbelievable, just absolutely phenomenal. So just fair warning, Amanda and Adam, like, I'm totally shopping this program. Like, I would be prepared to give it at least 2 more times this year, maybe more. So we can talk brokerage fees. Yeah. So, and we can have ad lib to help market and broker for us as well. So, but I did want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to our volunteers. Amanda and Jennifer and I now have a monthly meeting where we are discussing progress on the economic strategic plan, and it's all about the teamwork. You guys are making some tremendous progress, and I can't thank you enough for plugging in and helping us move those needles. We'll have more exciting announcements and progress as we go throughout the year. So thank you. Real quick, just because the State House is in session, and that's what I've been living and breathing for the last couple of months, I want to let you know it's halftime at the Indiana General Assembly. If you follow the news, you've read the news about all the hot stuff and all the crazy stuff that's my opinion, editorial there, that's come out of the General Assembly. Aspire has had some tremendous success. We're playing defense on a few things. We're playing it well in some areas, and we're really getting beat in some other areas. So where we're doing well is we jumped in on the employer COVID liability protections bill. We actually were at the table with House and Senate leadership last year to help craft that bill when we realized Congress wasn't going to get that done for us. And so Aspire and a coalition of chambers have been working on that. And so that was signed by the governor last week. Broadband, thrilled is one of our issues. Thrilled to see so many bills, both addressing how we use the money we have, how we prioritize communities, and new money, which we, in our wildest dreams, didn't think we'd get. So we're very excited about that. WorkShare is a really great program that unfortunately did not make it out of committee because the committee chair personally just didn't believe in the program, even though 7 of his 11 committee members co-sponsored the bill. We know there's bipartisan support. So unfortunately, that's something we're just going to have to go back after again next year. And then smoking cessation to improve the health of our workforce. Stephanie's talking about talent. There is a tobacco increase. There's a cigarette tax increase and e-cigarette tax built into the budget. So we're excited about that. So anyway, I just want to let you all know that we're still tracking some of these issues. We're optimistic on a couple of them that we'll still be able to move the ball down the field. But if not, there's always next year. So please check our weekly emails. We do put a weekly update on the State House during session in our emails that go out on Tuesdays. And if you miss them, they're online. You can go to our website, aspirejohnsoncounty.com, and you can look into our news and you can find all those important updates. So, all right. Hey, thanks again. A phenomenal program. I appreciate the work that the teams are doing, and I had fun. Thank you very much for putting the program on. Yep.
Thanks, Christian.
Good.
All right, so lastly, our next Community Matters meeting is March 24th at 3:30. We'll be doing that one on Zoom also. Our topic will be youth civic engagement. So I hope to be having a panel of a variety of students from around Johnson County to share their experiences, some of our youth civic engagement programs. So look forward to that. You can sign up on our website to get the link to join. And then lastly, I just want to let everyone know that I will be sending out a survey, so you can share your opinions on what you thought of the meeting today, if you enjoyed it, if you have suggestions, if you learned anything, hopefully you did. So please fill that out on SurveyMonkey and it'll come right back to me, and then we'll be looking over where we can make improvements. So that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to learn about economic development, and I appreciate you being here. So have a good evening and thank you so much.